Excellent. More people coming in. Cool. Grab a seat, any seat.
I need to be mindful before it kills someone.
Oh really? Oh, look at that. As soon as you start something, everyone turns up.
Send me a text.
Okay.
Trust me.
Okay guys. Take a moment, come into the room, let go of thoughts of murder, let go of whatever is going on. If you need to keep your phone on your desk,
I do it today,
that's
sorry.
no problem at all. Hi! Good morning.
I will try to only focus if I have to on that.
That's no problem at all, I understand life
I'm
happens.
hitting record now. It's got a red dot.
Is the clock counting?
Yes.
There we go. We'll see how it works. This one's just a practice. Okay. Good. We all in the room? Let it go. Got an hour in here now. Good. This is what we're going to do this week. We're going to turn on the clicker, and then we're going to click. So we're going to spend a few seconds just looking over, reflecting on how your week has gone and anything that happened, anything that bubbled up, any observations that you may have made. We're then going to focus on presence. Focus on presence. Interesting. And its association with mindfulness and the correlation between the two and how important presence can be or not, depending on your perspective. I'm going to introduce three core qualities which combat the three main challenges that people experience in mindfulness training. So I'm going to focus on one of those today, one next week and one the following week, just introducing them, and they influence the sessions, the actual training that we do as well. Okay, then we're going to go into our training, and then we're going to look at the first work technique, specifically of goals and the relationship between goals, goal setting and the mind, and how we can be more successful in achieving our goals, what's standing in our way and what we can do about it. How does that sound? Okay, so how was the week? Any observations, any thoughts, any challenges? Yeah, Robert.
I noticed I was in a meeting with Eugene and with one of our reps. We were trying to redo one of our conference rooms, and I noticed we were in the middle of conversation about different products, and he was texting himself a note, and as soon as he was doing that, I was thinking about a meeting I just had and a meeting I was going to have, and I had to hurry up and write my notes. So I'm madly writing notes, and I caught Gene staring at me like, what are you writing? And realizing, wait a minute, I'm not being at all present here right now, and so just kind of bringing it back again. So noticing, I think, things more when they come up like that.
Well, that's great. But I think there's a really interesting observation there. Is the example other people set makes us feel it's okay to do things, and sometimes we just follow what other people do. Now, if you see someone in a meeting texting, it must be all right for me to text, and suddenly your head went to there. Thank you so much for being vulnerable and sharing that. It's interesting, and I think we need to flip that and realise that we're setting the example for everyone as well. So what we're doing in meetings, what we're doing in our lives, people are watching us. Yeah? Set the right example. Einstein said that setting the right example is not the best way of influencing someone. It's the only way. I mean, if you've got kids, you can scream at them all you like. They might not change their behaviour. But if you do something, they're going to go, well, you did it, Mum. I saw you did this, so why wasn't it all right for me? Yeah? They're following example. That's one of the ways we learn, especially boys who are stupid. We're stupid. We learn by experience. What? That's hot. Ow! Yeah? We learn by experience. Okay, cool. Can you remember the two rules of mental effectiveness? Focus on what you choose. That was the first one. I just gave it to you. What was it?
Focus.
Focus on what you choose. And the second one? Choose
Wisely.
Choose your distractions. Choose wisely. Choose your distractions wisely, mindfully. Yeah? Do we remember those now? Did anyone have any? Well, we've already had one. Yeah? You chose your distraction mindfully. You recognised, you became aware of what you were doing and readjusted your focus. That's great. That's continuing to train your attention.
You know what, that's really hard though, because it was very difficult to focus when I was at my desk and I'm like, email, and I tried to set that aside for a separate time, but it was really hard to continue to focus on what I
Cause you know
was
there's
doing.
120
There's-
coming in
absolutely.
while you're.
Yeah.
I know. Well, we're
Not
going to talk about
focusing.
email specifically. It's one of the work techniques we'll be covering in the coming sessions, and it can be very difficult. Are they popping up all the time?
No, I just
You
know
just
they're
know
there.
that.
I know they're there, but I did retrain. I kept coming back to focusing on what I needed to get done at that.
So here's the thing. That's great, okay, because you are training your brain to pay more attention. It's a distraction, and we'll talk about in the session how to deal with that. Some of the techniques we can, but you already know them. Try to turn them off, etc., etc. But you're training your attention, your focus, to focus on what you choose just by coming back from that. That's great.
Last night was the first time that I did not work until 11 o'clock at night. But I will tell you, I mean, I made a conscious effort to not work and actually spend time with my family. But 90% of my frustration this morning is because I didn't do that. Wow.
She closed her door.
Yeah, I did.
After
I did.
this
Times
last
I've
week,
noticed it.
her door was closed.
Okay.
And I did not bother her. However, I also forgot what I needed to ask you.
Was it that important? Well, it's interesting. So you're setting some boundaries. We're finding it difficult to balance our time occasionally. Well, we're going to be talking about goal setting and why that's important and how it's important. One of the things we can do. What's important to you? I'd be very surprised if you said to me that your family wasn't important to you.
Oh no, I won't say that.
So, maybe what you did was really important, and the frustration is because it's in something new. We're resetting boundaries, changing the way we work, refocusing our attention to what is serving us and the people around us, and it's just a new way of working, and that's always going to cause frustration. And by the way, you can work every hour God sends. It doesn't matter. You'll always be able to find work, won't you? Yeah? We can always find stuff to do. Whether or not it's appropriate and it's serving us is something different, which we'll talk about.
The thing I noticed,
Go on, no, please.
the thing I noticed the most was that I noticed when I was not being mindful. It wasn't that I stopped doing it.
I have to agree with that.
But I was like, that was not very nice. But it was an emergency and I needed to deal with it then.
Well, then that's exactly mindful. That's exactly it. You chose your distraction because you had to do it.
Yeah.
I want to be doing this, but this distraction, this thing has come up. This is Peter walking into the office going crazy, and I've got to give this all my focus because this is more important. That is absolutely being mindful. The fact that you're noticing is changing the way you think. You're rewiring your brains. You're becoming more mindful. You're paying more attention. You're going to reap the benefits. All right, cool. Great. So take a second. Just set your intention for this session. How have we used 10 minutes already? Alrighty. So first off, presents. There's an old Chinese proverb that says that presence is the greatest gift you can give someone. I'd like to add to that, it's the greatest gift you can give someone or anything. Being present with what you are doing, you're giving a gift to your work, arguably giving a gift to yourself and to your colleagues and everyone around you, as well as being present with somebody when you're talking to them. So being present with your work is almost as, if not as important as being present with people. Does that make sense? So what does presence mean to you? Give me a definition, what is it?
Paying attention to what you're doing.
Paying
attention to what you're doing or who you're with.
Quite like mindfulness, isn't it? It's a bit similar. It's very similar, and there'll be correlations, things here where it'll be hard to tell the difference. But personally, I see mindfulness as this sort of overarching philosophy, the domino habit from that first session that influences everything else, and presence is one of them. Even when we see very similar benefits. Were you going to say? You going to define that, Francesca, or was it Robin?
I was just saying, just being in the moment.
Being in the moment. Being here now. Oasis had an album called Be Here Now a number of years ago. I didn't know what it meant. Oh, stupid name. And I went, oh, recently went, oh. How prescient of them. How cool of them. So presence is a gift, but we can get in trouble when we're not present, can't we? Can anyone think of a downside? An occasion when you've not been present with what you've done and it's led to you getting into trouble in some way?
hitting send on an email just quickly and then thinking, oh god.
Oh, I shouldn't have.
They reply all.
3
when
times
they-
in
Yeah.
10 days.
I was gonna say,
Yeah.
on a regular basis, no
Chat
worries.
easily from the notepad.
Reply all. All of our bugbears, isn't it? How many emails do you get? It's probably contributing to your tension. The amount of emails that people are sending you unmindfully that you don't need to see. So maybe you don't need 100, and on average people receive and send up to around about 100 emails a day. You probably get more in this sort if you're, what's your role?
CFO.
You probably get quite a lot more.
I get a lot.
Yeah. So how many of those do you actually think you need to be working with? in the
Out of
average?
a day, probably 25 to 30 of all of that I get. I would
So
say.
less than a quarter, less than 25%. That's crazy. Yeah, we need to be so much more mindful. We'll come on, as I say, we'll come on to emails. Just hitting reply all. Ugh! And what happens when you hit reply all and you've said something and you forgot who was on the distribution list?
Oh, no.
Yeah? I've done it on a phone call. On an thankfully, an internal company phone call, not recently, many years ago, when I was less wise than I am now. And I said something about someone and he was on the call.
That's when you lost that job.
Thankfully, he wasn't very senior and it wasn't hugely bad, it was just, yeah.
And he wasn't paying attention, he was emailing.
He probably didn't even hear.
How many conference calls do we get on where half the people are like, hello, are you even there?
That's right.
Because
Well,
they're
this happens all
multitasking.
the time. People going on mute, etc. And we'll talk about communications and calls at another time. So there are lots of detriments, there are lots of downsides of being not present that we can all identify. Let's have a look at, it's difficult to be present, isn't it? It's difficult to be in the moment. It's difficult to pay attention to what you want to pay attention to, which is a little crazy, but we're going to talk about that. Let's have a look at the neurology again, and you'll see the similarities. These are this is exactly the same slide as with mindfulness. You see that presence, being focused, being attention, is the same as being mindful, as being with what you want to be with, and it builds the prefrontal cortex. As opposed to when we get busier and we activate and light up other areas of our brain, there's less space for creativity, there's less calm, there's less focus, and we start to reduce the size of our prefrontal cortex, as we've already discussed. But as we become aware of it, we can come back to it and get back to that calm space and continually help, hopefully, build our focus and build our brain size. Make sense? Cool. And you've seen something along the lines of this slide before as well, and you'll notice the similarities of the benefits of presence. And you will have noted the issues that we have with a wandering mind. And there's a weird paradox here, which I think it's worth taking a moment to consider. It doesn't really matter where your mind is wandering. It's still detrimental to your health and your productivity, etc. So picture remembering a wedding in Vegas on Thursday that you went to, and how much fun you had. I'm not here, I'm there. That's in the past. Remember imagine now the summer holiday you've got coming up to Greece. How excited and how much fun that will be. But your mind is still wandering, your mind still isn't here. So why might it be that even when we choose to daydream or remember things that were fun and great, why might it still not be helping us? Why might that still be symptomatic of a wandering mind which leads us to be less happy? What's it telling you?
That you're not having fun or happy now.
That you're not here, that you'd rather be somewhere else. But simply by paying attention to where you are, you can become happier. Because you're no longer comparing. Does that make sense? Okay. Quiz time? Which one is it?
4.
47. I thought it said 4 up there and someone was saying 4. 47% of the time, just to remind you, 47% of the time your mind is wandering. But this is a variable. This can be changed by paying more attention to what we want to pay attention to, by going to the mental gym, etc., 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 etc. Attention deficit trait is real. The paid reality is trying to steal your presence and drag it off to all sorts of other things. Make sense? But there are some benefits of presence. We talked about them already. And it's interesting, just by being present, we're going to do what we want to do better. We've already established that, the little multitask exercise we did last week. We were making mistakes because arguably we weren't present, we were moving between things. Yeah? And just by being more productive, we're happier. By doing what we want to do better, which is caused by paying more attention to it, is just to be happy. Yeah? It's fairly simple. Making sense? And the opposite side, the flip side of that, of course, is when we're not paying attention, when our mind is wandering, we're going to have decreased performance. And who feels happy when they're performing poorly, or beneath what they know they're capable of, or beneath what they need to be doing? Does it make you feel good? No. So one of the things that we can do to improve our performance and improve our happiness is to be more present with what we're doing, to pay attention, to give things more focus. Sound good? Resonating? Cool. Because this is the logic of presence. What has happened in the past exists only in your memory. And we're not going to go into quantum physics or quantum mechanics because maybe I don't quite understand it as well as I should. But if you're interested in the concepts of everything is real and everything isn't and that sort of stuff, there's a great movie called What the Bleep Do I Know out there, which blew my mind. So what has happened in the past exists in our memories. What is happening might happen in the future. Might happen in the future is in our imaginations. The present is all we have. Our lives are not the past, not about the past. We should not be defined by the past. We can be influenced by it. We can learn from it. They're certainly not about the future because it hasn't happened yet, and it might not happen. It almost certainly won't happen the way you expect it to happen if your life follows the same sort of line mine does. Yeah? What you've got is this moment, and this moment, and this moment. And if we're not present, where's your life? Are you living the life you want to do? If you're spending time in the past or in the future and not present with what is happening, this is what's happening. This is our moment. This is our life right now and now. It's a series of present moments. Does that make sense? So being present is going to help you live your life and arguably get more out of what you want. Yeah? But it's difficult. I know. It's easy to stand up here and preach and say how easy it is, and that this is such a simple thing. We can change our lives just by being present. We can get what we want. But it's hard because that paid reality is stealing your attention. Now, no one is suggesting that you are frenzied underachievers, but it's changing the way we think. Neural pathways are strengthening to become multitaskers because we think that's what we want to do. And we've seen all the downside of multitasking. It makes it harder. Attention deficit trait is becoming the norm because there's so much to focus on. How do I choose? I don't know what it is I should be focusing on at the moment. There's so much out there. I've got so much I want to do. But this is what we need to be doing. We need to be paying attention and being present with the task at hand. Because that's all presence is. I find it really interesting that people talk about others having great presence, great charisma. Wow, they're so present, they've got this aura about them. And I specifically remember stories about Bill Clinton and people saying, oh, when he was talking to me, it was as if I was the only person in the room. Why? Because you were. Why? Because he was paying attention to you. He's actually engaging, he's looking you in the eyes, and whatever his intention may be, whatever his motivation may be, he's there with you. Completely engaged, and it can be hypnotic. Great actors, the Clooneys of this world, you think, what, who cares how good looking they are or not? It's not about that, it's that they will pay attention to you. Now their curiosity may be motivated from a different space, but people again say, oh, I was the only person in the room when George was talking to me. I felt so special. What was he doing? Just paying attention. Present. Does that sound like something that you could do? Something that could be important? No? Why was that? Why are you shaking your head? Why is it difficult?
Because it
It is, yeah, that's what we're exploring here. I mean, you've laid out a lot of reasons why it's difficult, because there are so many distractions, but, you
Well,
know.
no, take a moment.
Oh, so for example, we went out to dinner, my husband and I went out to dinner last night, and it was great. We were sitting across from each other, we were present with each other, we went home, we tried to have a conversation at home, but we were sitting in chairs facing, like, opposite directions, kind of doing our own thing, kind of chatting with each other, and the conversation just was not full, you know?
So can you think of?
So two, same people, two important conversations, two
Yeah.
different locations,
Yeah.
but two totally different conversations.
Can you see how easy it would be to have changed that second circumstance and why the first one was easier?
Yeah.
So it's easy to change. It's not difficult, you're aware. Face each other, stop doing the other thing. When you're out at dinner, you're probably facing each other, and you probably have a rule that you're not allowed to get on your phones when you're at dinner. When you got home, that rule has been put aside, and you're facing away from each other.
There's stuff to pick up, and there's a mess, and there's this,
Yeah.
and there's that, and so you gotta do all that and talk at the same time, or you won't get anything done.
That's why we are mindful to go out to dinner.
Or you do one thing at a time, because we know that's faster, so you're more likely to get all the cleaning done. And everyone knows we have to do these things. There's all sorts of stuff and tasks and chores that we have to do that are standing in the way of us having fun, whatever it is. But if we try, perhaps, my invitation is to try it differently next time, to focus on. One of the girls in the other group told her husband, "Stop, I can't speak with you right now. You're interrupting me. I need to finish this." And then then you have.
They have kids.
Even, I mean, here's the thing with kids. I mean, okay, it's difficult potentially with young kids, but kids need boundaries. They need to learn how to act, and if we can be mindful and teach them to be mindful at an early age, arguably we can make the world a better place. Sounds really grandiose, but the example you set is how what they will follow. If it's okay from your perspective for them to interrupt you in everything that you're doing, and there will always be occasions when they have to do that, then you're teaching them it's okay to do that to everyone else. That makes it okay to walk into a colleague's office and not even pay attention to what he or she is doing. And as we do, be knocking on the door as you're already in the office. Hey, how you doing? And pay no attention to what that person is doing. We're teaching them how to multitask, how to be unmindful. And it's difficult because we have to change it, or we have an opportunity to change it. Yeah? So
Sorry, yeah.
pretty simple, but if you have other things to do, my suggestion is don't try to have that conversation, because it won't be a great conversation and it will lead to resentment. Well, maybe when you get home after dinner, you've got your moment as a couple, you say, right, when we get home, we've both got different things to do, let's do them separately, and then come back together later on in the evening. Maybe that'll allow you to get your tasks done quicker and be focused on it completely, so that you can then be focused on your partner a little bit later, as opposed to splitting your attention between the two and not really being happy with either. Does that make sense? It's something worth trying, perhaps. That's the invitation. So we've kind of covered this slide already. Thank you very much. Look at you, moving forward without me. And we can see already how it being more present with other people can be beneficial. More present with our work colleagues. I'm noting a little bit of cynicism. No? Can we see that? Or was I making the decision for you? I kind of was, but I thought we were there. Does that make sense? Okay, so it's not difficult. It can appear difficult, and there can be boundaries and circumstances we have to establish in order to enable it. But the actions that we can do in order to enable and improve our presence are really simple. There's no magic here. Okay? The more you practice, the more you're going to be able to do it. The more you identify the circumstances and what you can just do. Remember, we were talking about mental effectiveness, how we spend more time in that top right quadrant. I'm going to talk about that in goals. What we can do individually, technically, and socially. We can establish a boundary. We can turn our chairs to face each other. We can say we're going to do this individually and then come back and talk to each other. We can turn our phones off for the period of a dinner. Yeah? There's all these little things that we can do, which sometimes perhaps we think we can't. It's worth trying. I'm not suggesting that this is going to be simple and it's all going to work very quickly. Change takes time, it's messy, and it takes longer than you expect. But we can try. We can see if it works, and if it works, then we can serve ourselves by continuing to try. Make sense? Just by being present with your in-breath and your out breath. Just by practicing 10 minutes a day. You can't teach this in the other group. It's so difficult to teach. Yeah, don't try. Get people to practice. 10 minutes a day, 5 minutes a day, 2 minutes a day. Don't care. Regular amount of time, and it will bleed in to everything that you do. It's experiential. You will start to become aware. You will start to notice things differently. You will start to notice your emotions. We talked last week, before they actually affect you, or before you allow them to affect others. You will start to notice that when you're not present, and think about ways you can be more present. Does that make sense? Okay, cool.
Are we gonna talk about phones at some point?
Yes, I'm sure we can. It's not really, I haven't really got time in this one. We've specifically got emails. We'll have a look at the program later. Communication might be where phones are coming in. But yes, absolutely, and there's some techniques there as well. If we don't, we'll make a slot for it. Okay, any questions before we move on? Anything bubbling around?
It seems like in an organization, people might need to agree on a culture of mindfulness and then really define what that means. So for example, in our organization, we knock and say, is it a good time before we come into somebody's office? And everyone has that same understanding. Or in our organization, we CC people on emails when. And I think you've probably seen organizations who do it successfully and have like a little bit of a guide there. Maybe you'll go through it at some point.
With some sort of etiquette.
Yeah,
Right.
like etiquette. Yeah,
It's not
to help us to be mindful.
You're
tangible.
absolutely right, and the way to get investment in that is for people to bring it, to work it out themselves, not for me to tell you how to do it. I can quite happily consult and sit with you as you build it, and I could chair the meeting or something along those lines, but again, you don't really want me to do it. You want somebody in the organisation to do it, so that they have ownership of it, so that everyone sees that everybody's in it together, and build the culture together. Then everyone's invested in it. Everyone gets the opportunity to comment on it, everyone gets an opportunity to come up with ideas, and you make a decision as a group moving forward. We do this in workshops. You build your values, you build your purpose, you build your culture. Culture, after all, is just an aggregation, a conglomeration of what you do on a regular basis. Yeah? What is your culture? This is what we do, this is how we do things. It's very, very easy, but it takes time. It takes time to set it up. It's not easy to set it up and what you're going to agree on and then to enact it and hold each other responsible for it. But yeah, absolutely, that is one way to do it.
Maybe we could do it in wellness. And so
It's a great idea. Great idea. Okay, I'm going to jump forward if that's okay. Just being mindful of your time. Because I always forget we've got a 10-minute practice to do as well. Oh, I've got 30 minutes. Oh, damn, we're going to do 10-minute practice. But that's so important. Okay, so 3 challenges and qualities. Has anyone experienced a real challenge in your mindfulness training when you're sitting still?
just the monkey mind.
The monkey
which is
mind.
normal, yeah.
Always distracted. The monkey, I love the monkey mind.
Mm.
I love that analogy anyway. Anything else?
10 minutes is long.
Mhm.
After about 7, I'm like ready to go.
Yeah.
Oh, gotta get
Yeah.
some, gotta do something.
Constantly action addicted, we talked about this. Yeah, it's hard. There's a stress associated with sitting longer. There's a
Yes.
tension. I remember the first time I did it.
I was
I did
sitting in
it-
my head going, isn't this over yet?
Yeah.
Sorry?
I'm sitting there usually by like minute 5, like, isn't this over yet?
I've done exactly the same, and then after a period of time, you start to enjoy it, and you want more, and you want to go longer. And that's been my experience anyway. And I was, in the first few occasions of sitting for extended periods of time, I was having panic attacks on the mat. Sweating profusely, mentally struggling, fighting to keep my attention on my breath. Getting all sorts of physical pain as well, as I was so tense as I tried to sit still and keep my eyes closed and focus on my breath. And it was, honestly, it was really, really tense.
Not so bad then.
Mirror neurons at work, you see? The way I felt then, I felt really tense and uncomfortable. It might have made you feel a little uncomfortable as well. Mirror neurons at work. Relaxation is the key, and we're going to talk about that today. Focus is the key for those distractions, and we're going to talk about focus next week. And clarity is the key for any drowsiness you might experience. For me now, I'm more likely to experience drowsiness. I'm more likely, maybe I'll just have a nap instead. That's more when personally I do. But let's have a little talk about relaxation. What is relaxation? The absence of unnecessary effort, body and mind. Has anyone achieved high performance when they've been tense? Is it unlikely? My personal experience is that high performance comes out of relaxation. Relaxation allows you to experience and react quicker. If you're relaxed when you're driving, you're more likely to react quicker to what's happening in front of you. If you're tense, the reaction has to go through already tense muscles. Okay. High performance, I think, is really, the key to it is relaxation. A sports person, whatever that sport is, can you think that they might be better off? You're a runner, right? Are you better off running? Are you less likely to be injured if you relax?
A certain amount of tension is good.
Where?
To relax.
Where? Tension, really?
Yeah, I would say like there's just that sympathetic system
Focus,
activated.
perhaps. I'm
Yeah.
not, okay, I actually.
Okay, so tension maybe not.
Yeah.
So a little bit of anxiety.
Oh, there's nothing wrong with a little bit of stress. A little bit of stress is good, it drives you to higher performance.
Mhm.
But if you're experiencing tension in any of your in your body or your mind, I would argue you're less likely to perform at an optimal level. And again, that's been my experience in the various sporting activities I've done. As an actor, walking on stage, you walk on stage tense, I'm going to lose my words. I'm going to forget and walk on relaxed. Hey, it's cool. I remember walking up to sing Where is Love at a old people's home in Beverly Hills. There were 20 people there. It didn't matter. There was no reason for it to matter at all. There's no producers, directors or anyone like that there. I've rehearsed this song 100 times. I sang it when I was 5 on stage. I played Oliver. I've rehearsed it 10 times outside waiting to go on. I'm now standing to go on next. I can't remember the words. I have no idea what the first line is. Now, a lot of people's instinct at this point would be to tense up. And it's unlikely that you're going to let them go, no, I'm just going to relax, it's going to be cool. Have faith. Walking up to the piano, no idea what the first line is. 20 expectant old people, so excited about listening to these music. Relaxed. First note, no idea. And then as I took my breath to start singing, it came. Through relaxation in my mind, which was so key and taught every day at acting school. To be relaxed, it's the key, it's the foundation to high performance. And it's easy. We're going to do it in a moment now when we do our practice. We did it last week, we're going to re-emphasize it this week because it's so important. It's the foundation of performance. On your in-breath, you're just going to scan through your body, and on your out-breath, if you've noticed any tension, you're just going to let it go. And relax. Make sense? Everyone with me? Okay. Are we ready? Let's do it. It's great. I get 2 extra sessions when I'm teaching on a Tuesday. Feels so much more relaxed.
We didn't do our group one this morning.
Did what? You did a group one this
No, we didn't. We've been doing it every morning. We didn't do it this morning. Half the people were missing.
There's a few people missing today. We should be having words. Okay. Bring yourself into that grounded, balanced position with your feet flat on the floor, and just notice the floor. Notice your chair. Take a moment. Keep your back straight. Relax your head, your neck, your shoulders, your arms. Rest your hands loosely wherever is most comfortable for you, in your lap or on your legs. And if you're comfortable, you can close your eyes. If not, just keep them open with a soft focus at a 45-degree angle. And if you want to take a few deep breaths, sort of settle down, that's cool. And let your body relax in that position. as you're settling in, on your in-breath, start to scan through your body. If you notice a tension, any tension anywhere, and on your out-breath, just focus on it and let it go. Just relax. But whilst you're relaxing, maintain mental alertness. Just scan through your body. If you notice you become distracted, just relax. Release the distraction and return to scanning through your body.